is 6 p.m. UK time. It is the Spiritual Discussion Program. I'm Saad in Southeast London, and with me is Gregory. Gregory, as I said, I'm in Southeast London. It's dark now. It's been cold today, overcast as well. Please tell us where you are, Gregory, and how's the weather where you are?
In Brussels, just like London.
Right, welcome. Welcome, listeners. As I said, this is a spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. And every week we have a new topic. The topic we are having tonight is the power of silence. The power of silence. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses. Nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. Dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for discussion tonight is the power of silence. The power of silence. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as usual, I look in the dictionary, the meaning of our title. The word, the main word I can say in our title tonight is the power of silence, or let's say one of the keywords, let me say. So in the dictionary, the word silence, it says complete absence of sound. And also that's in this silence as the word as in a noun, and as a verb it says to prohibit or prevent from speaking. That's the meaning of silence. I just want to ask you, Gregory, is that definition is good enough for our discussion for tonight? And you think you're on mute, Gregory?
So thanks for raising these questions. The power of silence and the definition you just gave becomes very apparent that from the dictionary perspective, the absence of sound may be referred to as silence.
Yes. Did you want to say further, Gregory? I didn't hear.
I said the absence of sound,
yes,
may be referred to as silence, because silence has to do with, again, even before you go to silence, one has to look at one of the senses, the sense of sound or of speech or whatever, or to make some noise. So when one is talking about the absence of sound, that means the absence of speech or whatever. That is what one may refer to as silence. But again, it becomes a conundrum. How can the absence of something now has power?
Yes, definitely. You're wondering. In fact, the word silence, you said means absence of sound, but you're wondering, how can silence lead to anything? Never mind power. It's silent means you're doing nothing. So it seems absurd, actually, that silence can have power. You're doing. I know it means sound. It's referring to sound, but also it sort of. Well, maybe I'm wrong, Gregory. Does it mean when we are silent, we are doing nothing?
that is the conundrum that one is referring to. That the power of silence is only a figure of speech, but the meaning is different. And that was why the idea of splitting things up to explain what is happening, in some scenarios, it is not the best.
Yes. So, okay, I think as we always need a context when we are discussing something. So when we are talking here, the power of silence, what there's a power involved. It must be there's some activity, Gregory. So, but this activity obviously means without any speaking. So, now, if we are not speaking, Gregory, in this power of silence, what is the activity that we are referring to?
Actually, as with all the previous discussions, also with this one and any future discussions, the key thing here is that ability to get the picture behind it, or the intuitive picture. Which intuitive picture or which intuition is comprehensive in that particular case? One can already perceive a happening in the form of like a flash. It's like a picture which had been shown. It is that picture which is the initial seed which must be held by that personality. But the challenge is, once that picture is translated to sound or to speech, it loses some of its energy, some of its power. Therefore, not to translate it into some other form, that is the power which is referred to. For in not translating it into speech, the process through which it may lose its vitality, its energy, it becomes like a seed, an initial seed, which attracts things which are similar to it and becomes strong. It is in that strength, that means the build-up, that gives it strength, the reinforcing that gives it strength. That is the power which is referred to. For in not allowing it to be transmitted into speech, it builds up a pressure and attracts others. Most likely intuitively, that is what is referred to as the power of silence.
Thank you for this explanation, Gregory. Last week we had a very similar, well, maybe I could say it this way. The topic for discussion last week was the power of good volition. Very similar, somehow feeling similar to the tonight's topic of the power of silence. So when you said just now about having an intuitive picture of this activity, I was wondering, and it's working in silence. I was wondering, we're referring to this power of silence, the activity of the good volition, where it is also building up, you could say, in quite, I mean, it's not automatically says in silence, but maybe it's a similar thing where we stay silent, but it's our good volition which is sort of getting stronger over this through the silence. So are we refer? Yeah, go on.
The good volition attracts that which is homogeneous to it. And in that attraction, there is a build-up, and before long, it grows. It gets to a certain extent when it therefore precipitates into physical activity. So also is a bad volition. The bad volition or the evil volition, we attract to it that which is homogeneous. That which is homogeneous to its intent, and subsequently will precipitate into some evil being perpetrated within the neighborhoods or around the neighborhoods. So whether good or bad volition, the same process happens. However, in the case of silence, what is stressed here is that in the process of attracting that which is similar or that which is homogeneous, it is not let out immediately through some form of speech. Therefore, it is kept under pressure.
Thank you, Gregory. I'm getting this picture now, how we are, by looking at it more slowly, we can see things more clearly as well. Like we're building up a picture. So, I mean, you pointed out this in silence, the power it could be a good volition, it could be an evil volition or bad volition. So in a way, the build-up or the growth of this volition can be good or bad. It's neutral. It's not about only good volition grows and gets strong. Evil volition also can get strong in the same. The process is the same for either good or bad volition. The environment we've said is silence. That's where that allows this power to grow. And I think you also pointed out in your answer in the first question that it manifests from, from silence into something, materialize it as you could say, a physical action. So it's not just an idea or a thought. There's actually something growing to turn into a physical action. So yes, and you can see that as something that has become stronger. Now, I want to look at another thing, Gregory. Silence, it brings peace to our mind. It quietens the noise, as we said, this absence of noise or sound. Silence brings peace to our mind. It quietens the noise around from our daily stressful life, you can say. It allows us to connect with the inner spiritual self rather than constantly dealing non-stop with our earthly matters. Giving our brain a rest, you could say. Is that why, I know I'm slightly moving away from the main subject here. Is that why, Gregory, is one of the 10 Commandments say, keep the Sabbath day holy? Is it we are going to stop our daily activity and, rest That's what we're told, rest on this seventh day. Is that um, is that what this commandment is about? Having this rest on the Sabbath day?
The absence of activities is not what is meant by keeping the Sabbath day holy. First, the concept of holiness needs to be understood in the proper context. For when these commandments were given, they were given in such a way that it should be easy, to be simple, the word simplicity, for many to comprehend. Holiness has to do with that which is not wasted. Consider that you are given a talent, and instead of using that talent to procure that which will be of benefit to you, you gamble away that talent and it brings no benefit. Now, what is granted to the human personality in the form of power to create forms or to sort of develop forms, that which is granted to it first is the free will. That free will, when used in accordance with the laws of creation, in that particular scenario, then it is used in accordance with the will of the giver. In that case, whenever that is done, then one has fulfilled to keep that day or that hour or that period, one has kept it holy in reverence to what has been granted. So that Sabbath day, that is what the human personality, through its activities, focuses on the power that assails it, and with high reverence shown towards the source of that power. In that particular context or scenario, one is keeping the Sabbath. It is said, you yourself, through your activities. That does not mean on the Sabbath day one should not eat. After all, eating is an activity. That does not mean on the Sabbath day one should not drink. After all, drinking water is an activity. The act of drinking that which is necessary, not only for the spiritual essence of man, but also the physical essence of man, but done with reverence, to the giver. That is the keeping of that period holy. So most of the discussions regarding the Ten Commandments had been one-sided because many had looked at these commandments from too much an earthly point of view, whereas from the intuitive point of view, which is more accurate, which is more comprehensive, they have ignored that which is of benefit to the spirit. The art of interpreting whatever one has heard in accordance with the laws of creation, with reverence to the source that provided these opportunities, that in itself is keeping to the Sabbath. Whether one names that Sabbath Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever is immaterial.
Thank you for your answer and explanation, Gregory. It shows that when we look at a question or and try to understand something, let's say we have a tendency to look at it from the earthly point of view, but that is not really, you could say, the full picture. We need to see it from the intuitive point of view or spiritual point of view, and you could say, or global point of view, and somehow we don't seem to have that tendency to automatically go there, and then we focus on, let's say, Sabbath as a day or something, and not to actually see the reality of what we mean by that. Is as you say, it doesn't have to be a set day. It must be Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. One fixed day. That's only that day that you keep the Sabbath. You can, pick. It doesn't have to be one specific day. Just have to see these things more broadly and globally. So thank you for that. Dear listeners, I want to remind you, you're listening to the Spiritual Discussion Program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushi. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message, or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is the power of silence. The power of silence. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1 blessradio1.com. That's blessradio1, that's number 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space live stream. That's Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of the show the next day. Go to, again, youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space Grail Message, space, and the topic of the show, which tonight is the power of silence. And there's even a third website you can listen to us on, which is zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again. Gregory, people say, it's a common saying, silence is golden. I just want to ask, what do they mean when they say silence is golden?
Most of the time, there are expressions, sayings, and each of these sayings or group of expressions are interpreted differently depending on the scenario. This is only a figure of speech. Silence is golden. Therefore, one will strive to explain it intuitively, or one we refer to as the intuition, which is referred to by that expression, silence is golden. For when an intuition or an intuitive perception or an inner activity strikes one, and subsequently it is not uttered in speech immediately, it is in that state acting as a seed, and therefore is able, through the laws of creation, particularly that law of the attraction of homogeneity, it is able to bring similar substances to itself. Those similar substances, in being attracted, they therefore, under pressure, because no channel has been offered to it to escape, they are able to congeal, to condense, and finally to precipitate into one other earthly form or another. That process of attraction by that initial thought acting as a seed, in which that thought is strengthened, that process is highly valued as one will value gold. For a small token speck of gold is quite precious because it's highly appreciated. So for those with good volition, who know how to put out good volition and also attract good volition and keep it under pressure by not talking too much, by allowing this particular seed to grow, it is comparable to having gold. Most likely, that is why you have the expression, silence is golden.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer and explanation again. You hear these wise sayings, and people just use them and not really think too much about them. But you've given a good picture there. One can think more about that. So thank you for that. I know we sort of mentioned it already, but I just want to we just mentioned that silence is golden. So I just want to go back to this just to get clarity again, because we talked about good volition, becoming stronger in the silence, and also evil volition, we talked about, will also get stronger in the silence. Now, just want to ask in relation to that, and we know in the Grail Message, Gregory, we are told about the law of attraction of homogeneous species. You could say like attracts like. In regard to thoughts, we know similar thoughts are attracted to come together and become strong. And, you said it applies to good and evil thoughts equally. But I'm just wondering, Gregory, can good thoughts become more powerful than evil thoughts? Because you wonder, you think about the Creator as goodness or good, and you think of being almighty, the Creator being almighty, and you never consider the Almighty to be evil. So somehow, Gregory, I just want to understand, if thoughts can become stronger in silence, with good or evil thoughts either can get stronger in silence, can good ever overcome the evil? Or is there some thing that prevents evil from becoming so powerful? Or is that they're really equal in their power, that good gets strong, as much strength as even in silence, as much as evil can get strong as in silence?
The power which is attracted through the free will of man, that power is spiritual and is neutral. It is what one makes of it that makes it either resonate with the laws of creation, which laws of creation will ensure that it brings one benefits. That which is beneficial to the human personality enables the human personality to rise from one level to the other. If, however, the human personality, in the process of attraction, only attracts within the environment those hideous forms, those macabre forms, because it, the human personality, has acted as a seed. Then the power within creation would push together all those things which are hideous towards that personality, and will also make that personality or that particular thought dense. In that particular case, it will make the human personality sink, not rise. For that thought is not beneficial. So this has nothing at all to do with the giver or the dispenser of this power, which has now been used in such a terrible way. But one thing stands out. Because that power has not been used in the way, in accordance with the laws of creation, such that it's of benefit not only to himself, not only to himself and the environment, but also to all others, that is increased. It increases that which the personality is able to draw. The goodness is that personality is able to draw to himself. Whereas in the other case, the power is then weakened. Because it is so weakened, it is not of benefit as such to that personality. And therefore, you find only that which is of benefit, which is good, of good volition, only that will be much, much strengthened as compared to that which is not of good volition. Not of good volition, it could be of evil volition, or could be bad volition. It could also be stagnant volition. But one is referring to not of good volition, whereas that which is of good volition will enable the human personality to rise higher in accordance. So the picture one then sees is that whatever activity that is seen out there is either of strong good volition, which enables the personality to rise, to remain on the same spot, which is not beneficial, or to sink. The human personality has to make a decision which way it needs to go.
Thank you, Gregory, for your answer again. Everything is an activity, that's quite clear, even silence. And good or evil, there's a direction that you're taking. And there's a consequence. Every action, there's a reaction. We know it from science, or even the laws we have talked about, the natural laws. What you sow, you shall reap. So if you sow good, you should get a good return, And if you sow evil, you should get the evil return. It's common sense, but then let's say we don't think about that. We just think, oh, we're just doing something, and there's some result that comes. Not too much looking deeply, how this process actually works. And when you appreciate, excuse me, when you do appreciate the process, then you see, oh, actually, oh, these laws, they're for our benefit. But that's the aim of these laws. They're to bring benefit. And if we misuse them, then, or let's say we apply them in the way it is meant to be, then we have the benefit. If we don't, then of course it's a harm. Now, I want to just look further into that, Gregory. We don't live on our own here, Gregory, isn't it? We live. So I'm just trying to work out, Gregory. When we work in silence, is it just our thoughts that are acting? Or is it we can unite with other people who might be having a similar thought? Is that how it becomes more powerful? Our thoughts, because it's not only our thoughts involved?
In the explanation given initially, the scenario should be very clear, in which there is a seed grain of intuitive thought which strikes the person. A seed grain. The personality holds on to this seed grain of thought. In holding on to it, without giving up the energy through speech or sound as such, that is what is referred to as silence. However, that initial thought, in accordance with the movement in creation, which motion of movements have arisen from the laws of creation, that particular thought, seed grain, is able to attract others. By attract others, it's able to do that because there is the strong affinity of homogeneity. One should take it a bit lower. Maybe that will clarify some of the confusion. Here we are discussing. You are in London. Here I am in Brussels. Let us use the common day parlance, in which, for instance, you have radio receptivity. If initially you tune your radio, it picks up a frequency. But when it picks it, it is not very, very loud. you can hear more of hissing. However, as you keep tuning it, it's able to pick up the frequency precisely. When it picks up that frequency precisely, one can call that resonance. In fact, in the so-called scientific expression, it is resonance. On the one hand, in everyday discussions, in everyday usage, on the so-called scientific way, it is resonance. On the other hand, the impression, which is referred to, or the equivalent of the intuition, which is referred to, is attraction of homogeneity. They can be used interchangeably. So when you now tune your radio and you are able to pick initially, and you keep tuning it until you are able to pick the broad spectrum, similar to what you refer to nowadays as broadband. All this refer to the attraction of homogeneity. Whether it is called magnetism, all this, when viewed correctly, intuitively, gives that all comprehensive structure of an attraction of homogeneity. So only through the attraction of homogeneity is one able to form unions. For the attraction gives the impression, one can see a picture of things coming together as when you are doing your tuning until it falls in. Because that picture is there, one can therefore speak of an attraction. So at the initial stage, that seed grain of thought attracts others until the amplitude, or let us use the word strength, the strength, it becomes stronger through the union. Because it becomes stronger and is under pressure, before long, it gets to a state where it becomes dense. And once it becomes dense, it is then precipitated, and it now manifests as a physical phenomena in the world of matter. So that is the approximate picture. However, a much deeper picture, as one goes along, can be realized through the work in the light of truth, the Grail Message. On the one hand, there is light, which light is of substantiality. And on the other hand, there is truth, which truth talks about the laws of nature or the laws of creation, or one may even talk about the divine laws which are in creation and creation laws which are in nature. These only express all the happenings that appertain or that takes place within creation or within nature. So also is this law of attraction that is referred to.
Thank you, Gregory, for the explanation and answer, giving, we building and building the picture. Even it looks like sometimes we go back to the a question which refers back to our previous answers, but it's good to sort of repeat a bit so that the answer sinks in properly, rather than just, it's like our understanding gets deeper when we really do go into it, rather than just we need time basically to absorb these pictures. So thank you for going into that. Now, Gregory, this, we've talked about power, which is going stronger in silence. Now, this is probably a very big question, but I just want to ask, is this power we're talking about God that is streaming,
Good question.
Yes.
That power is not, one will underline it, that power is not the Almighty. However, that power streams from the Almighty. These are two different things. The power streams from a source of the source itself. That is beyond divinity. One in this scenario is talking of that which is unsubstantiated. For the power which is in motion, which exerts pressure, that itself is substantiate. There was no need to go further, but to refer many a listener to this work. There, clarity abounds.
Thank you for your answer, Gregory. Just the word substantiate, it's not a very common, let's say, the known word. So I just wanted to understand, would you expand on that, what you mean, substantiate?
Substantiality is common because the word substance or the expression substance is very common. However, the meaning is maybe not very comprehensible unless one digs into it. With the word substance or substantiality, one may also have a picture of forms. So, substantiality is what is used in the creation of forms. For without substantiality or elementality, whatever that is perceptible with the senses, if they themselves had no form, then one is unable to perceive them. But one is able to perceive using one's five senses, one way or the other. Therefore, there are forms associated with them. With such association, there is, in general parlance, substantiality.
Thank you for that explanation, Gregory. Dear listeners, this is the Spiritual Discussion Program on Blessed Radio. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. If you want to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And as I said, you're listening to Blessed Radio, and the topic of discussion on tonight's show is the power of silence. The power of silence. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1.com. That's Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can also listen to the recording of this show the next day. Again, go to youtube.com, type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space Grail Message, and then space the topic of the show, which is the power of silence. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows as well. Also, you can listen to us again live. It's on this website, which is zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1. Gregory, again, talking about the power of silence. Many people practice meditation in silence. Does it help us or not?
You are assuming that meditation, the way it is, or the way it's interpreted, you wish to find out whether it's beneficial or not beneficial. Because you use the word help us. So one will prefer to use the word beneficial or not beneficial. And these things are, entered into in silence. One of the meanings of silence in that particular scenario, it only means a state with no noise. With no noise means noise is more or less some distractions. So you have a personality going into mental exercises with minimal distractions. However, that which is referred to as meditation is a thought which the human personality holds. It doesn't mean that thought just struck them from out of the universe. They are the source of that particular thought. And sometimes that particular thought is not in accordance with the laws of creation. That means not in accordance with the weavings which should bring benefit to the human personality, albeit the human spirit. And that is the challenge. There are some who then sit to meditate how not to get married. There are some who sit to meditate how to fast. But the question remains, to keep the body function, to make sure the body functions in accordance with the laws, there is need to take food and drink. If you now have the scenario of many who have not had that opportunity to be able to afford food and drink, not for 1 day or for 2 days or 3 days, and you then go ahead and ask such a person to meditate on fasting, then one can imagine the scenario that is being generated. If, however, it has been someone who is so obese and has to reflect on fasting, then that may be helpful. So when meditation is discussed, when people wish to meditate in silence, that means all noise, all distractions are pushed aside. Then there is the need to ask particular questions. Is that the ideal state that the person is going to be throughout its life? For there is no need to separate yourself from the masses. For the need is always there, that there is the one for all and all for one. But in separating yourself from every other person to meditate on this or that, the benefits which you yourself do not even or cannot even contemplate, it is more of an intellectual exercise rather than an exercise which is of spiritual benefit.
Thank you for your answer, Gregory. I think what I got from what you said is that meditation could be a mental exercise. So you might be silent in this process, but it's only, you could say, you're getting a mental rest or mental sort of, I don't know, relaxation or clarity, but it's not the same as a spiritual clarity or reflection. So that's, would I be right in my assessment there?
To some extent, yes. One chose those words very carefully because what is of benefit to the human personality, that is what is referred to as good. When it comes to mental exercises in which the frontal brain takes in all the exercises to the exclusion of the intuitive brain, which is the back brain, then such calls for excesses of effort in the frontal brain. That lack of balance between the discourse, between the exchange of the frontal intellectual brain and the back intuitive brain, that lack of balance does not augur well for the spiritual development of the inner man. That is what one is referring to.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I'm wondering, is there any exercise for the spiritual, our intuition? Do we need to do any exercise to strengthen our intuition? Meditation, you could say, was, let's say, more on a mental level. So is there, but it's not really as beneficial as the spiritual, using our spiritual ability. So is there anything, Gregory, that we can do as an exercise for our spiritual, let's say our intuition to develop or to strengthen our intuition?
Of course there is. The challenge, which one would try to express very carefully, is that which is intuitive, the picture that flashes across to us, to the intellect, that picture presents a more comprehensive structure. Because it presents a more comprehensive structure in which, if you follow that path, you will have to exercise so much of your efforts in building that picture for your personal understanding. It means it challenges you. Many weaken very quickly. Their expectation is that in which there is no self-exertion, whereas that which is intuitive requires more self-exertion to translate and transmit it. However, because many a person has not been used to this over millennia, has not practiced it for a long time, as with everything, if you do not practice a language again and again and again, before long, you will lose some aspects, or before too long, you will lose most aspects of it. That is the big challenge. So the question remains, How can one develop one's intuition? Only through practice. Of course, at the beginning, there will be errors. Of course, there will be errors. But the continuous refinement of that capture of the inner picture in trying to understand what lies behind it, a broader picture, and at the same time, not only holding it within yourself, but trying to give it a meaning, which meaning can also be of benefit to the environment, to nature. Only in this process of continuous exaction in activities, only in that pattern would you have that step by step, all the weeds that have grown, all the weeds which the intellect had allowed to grow, all those weeds will be cleared. And before too long, the intuition, the structures which the intuition presents will become clearer and clearer. That is the way forward. Any other way which does not allow the human personality to exert itself, such a way only leads downwards.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. I'm just thinking when we have a question, you want to reflect and find an answer. Do we is that basically, silence is the way, you could say, to get there. So yeah, I just want to get that, Gregory. Will we always find answer if in this, let's say silence intuitive process, if we have any question? Or is there some question which can't be answered?
It is said, he or she who seeks diligently will find. Most of the time, the word question already gives the intuitive picture that one is on a quest. If one is on a quest, it gives the picture again that there is the inner exertion, like the one who is climbing a mountain to get to the summit, from which summit the personality may then look down and see how things are connected. So, first, there is in a question the category. Category is about structures. You are in a quest, so you have to make the necessary efforts. That is the first. Categories of the question. And secondly, the connections of the different parts that belong to that particular question. It is left for the human spirit to exert itself when that particular individual is on a quest. Hence, he himself has questions.
Thank you. And Gregory, if you are looking for an answer to a question, there must be like a way you go about it. Because let's say, trying to think of an example, but I actually cannot at the moment. I'm just at this moment, I really am a bit lost to say this exactly how. So let's say you're looking for water, but I really can't quite say it in a way that will make sense. So let's say you're looking for water in the desert, but really there isn't any water in that desert. But what I'm trying to say, Gregory, if you look for an answer where it's not going to be there, that the answer is not in that place, So this example of water in the desert may not be the perfect example, but you look for something that's not even there, but you don't know that, so you're looking in the wrong place. That's what I'm trying to say, but you don't know that, and then of course you cannot find the answer because it's in the wrong place. So my question on that, Gregory, is what if you ask something but you're looking in the wrong place, but you don't know that? Can you still resolve that and get an answer? So can you be directed aright, let me say, to get the answer, even if you start in the wrong place?
One should use the metaphor of a language. Consider there is a language. Which language we now speak? It's being English. Because within the structure of the English language, which you and I understand, there's something common. We are able to recognize, for instance, in the written language, structures. Which structures we have internalized within ourselves mentally. And therefore, when we ask questions and somebody speaks English to us, we are able to understand those subliminal structures. If, however, we ask questions and those answers come in the form of Chinese or Japanese character, how are we able to tell that the answer supplied to us is inappropriate when we ourselves are oblivious of the languages through which these answers have been proffered? Therefore, the questionnaire or the person on the quest must harbor within himself or herself that source through which, or that channel through which answers will be proffered to it. Else, the answers are given, but the questioner does not understand it because it has not refined itself or has not worked hard enough to swing or to resonate with the level or to resonate to a particular level to be able to understand the answers which has been granted it. Yet, answers have been given. There are some, you use the example of you are searching for water in the desert and you think there's no water there. But there are some who, in their refined senses, depending on individual, they can smell water because of their refined senses. There are some who, due to their blood radiation, they can already sense that all you need to do is in the neighborhood, there is likely to be a pool and there is the need to dig a bit. There are some in which, because they haven't developed themselves, none of this occurs to them. That does not mean there are no solutions. It is again the person on the quest who needs to first adapt itself to the structure of creation, to the motion in creation, to the laws of creation, such that it will know the proper way to ask a question. And in that way, it is not for the person who is asking the question to place conditions on how that answer will be given. That is not how creation works. If, however, the person on the quest adjusts itself to the language, then one way or the other, by his seeking in the right direction, creation will offer the solutions, provided he, the person on the quest, can comprehend it. It also happens with many who seek the truth. Many, in quotes, seek the truth. And yet, when it is offered to them, because they haven't refined themselves to separate that which is truthful from that which is not truthful, they reject without knowing.
Thank you for that picture, Gregory. I just want to do a follow-on from that question about finding answers to the questions. Should we be in a particular environment, Gregory, like going into nature? Because we've talked about silence, we want to have silence, to receive an answer, let's say, to a question. But do we need to be also in a particular environment, like saying going to nature, where we can feel the calm there, the beauty there, or even some people say listen to uplifting music. It gives you that calmness. Is that necessary or helpful?
Depending on the individuals, these are only channels, be it music, be it humor, be it moving away from the hustle and bustle, so-called one goes into nature. Might as well go into the forest and you hear all the birds and the hyenas crying, and you will find that, it's not quiet anymore. However, what is stressed there is distractions being minimized. With the distractions being minimized, the personality is able to focus That is beneficial.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to the Spiritual Discussion Program on Tuesday evenings from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the UK time, that is, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushi. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is the power of silence. The power of silence. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on blessradio1.com. That's blessradio1, the number 1.com. Also, we are broadcasting on YouTube live. You can go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. And you can listen to the recording of the show the next day. Again on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the power of silence. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows as well. Also, we are broadcasting on another website, which is Zeno, that's ZENO.FM /Bless Radio 1. Again, the number 1 there. So that's Zeno, ZENO.FM /Bless Radio 1. Gregory, I want to ask now something a little bit different in regards to silence. So far we're trying to be talking about receiving answers or reflecting on issues. But what about and being silent, in this moment to receive answers and clarity? But what about when there's injustice going on? Do we keep silent in this time as well?
You mentioned injustice, and one is silence. Again, the figures of speech are being confused. In this particular case, being silent in the case of injustice, we are referring to the lack of one's participation in the face of this particular scenario. That is different from what one has been discussing, the power of silence. And it was made very clear, there is no power of silence. Now, what has happened is that speech, which distracts, which sucks away the power, or which sucks away the energy, in that scenario, is not in place. And therefore, you then have that pressure is built up. Now, there's the discussion with a scenario, a different scenario, in which you yourself observe, in quotes, injustice. The source of the injustice one does not yet comprehend. Now, it is the scenario where one is taking in a picture, not that picture which suddenly strikes you from externally. And it doesn't mean that you should not participate in rectifying a scenario by remaining silent in speech. Of course, there are other ways one can participate through activities other than silence, as that means through other activities other than mere speech or vocalizing certain things. So silence as such, which is tied to speech, is not the scenario you just painted. What you just painted is non-participation. Non-participation even in other, with other senses. That does not mean in one's look. That does not mean one cannot write something. One can participate even in thoughts without those thoughts being translated to speech. For silence as such is tied to speech. And one has to be careful in the usage of these figures of speech.
Thank you for that explanation and answer, Gregory, and clarifying that point. I mean, you can think of easily at school with children, you know, when they misbehave or they need to be given instruction. You know, maybe the word injustice is not quite appropriate in this point, but you need to speak out as a teacher or as an elder to the children to behave properly. Otherwise, if you stay silent, you can be sure they will misbehave and guaranteed to continue in their misbehavior. So keeping silent, they obviously will not be very productive or beneficial. And just sending out thoughts, I don't think will achieve anything in, or let's say, unlikely to with these children. As I say, I'm picking a specific example there, but I would say common sense will tell us that keeping silent in this situation will not work. Now, another example I want to look at, Gregory. You know, somebody gave this, you could say, wise words. You know, when it takes two people to argue, and one person was advised, well, let's say from apparently they learned from the father that that only, so as I say, two people are required for an argument to happen. So, you know, the advice they were given to avoid argument is you can be the person who doesn't engage in that. And so then argument would never happen. You could say, this is how, through silence, we bring about peace. In a, let's say, specifically, I'm talking obviously in a confrontational situation here. It's a different type of example here. So would you say, Gregory, it's a good example, a good advice that to avoid argument is to keep silent? to when you see such a difficult or confrontational situation?
It's sometimes good to look at the scenario very carefully. The
Sorry.
scenario where...
And
Can you
sorry,
hear
sir.
me?
Yes, I just want to add something in this. I forgot to mention one point on that. If you, in this scenario, Gregory, if you do keep silent, you're not, one person is doing the talking, you can say the other person keeping silent in a potential argument situation. Will that actually resolve anything? Because that's the point I wanted to make from that. So somebody giving the advice, keep silent to avoid argument. Will it resolve the situation?
In all of these scenarios, the stress is always on the intuitive picture. And as long as that intuitive picture is lacking, then there will be confusion. You were talking of the scenario of two people. It takes two people to go into an argument, but somebody can argue with himself. What the problem is a particular scenario seen from two different aspects. Each of them could be, from their view, from their point of view, is correct as far as they are capable. So that they are expressing their point of view and sticking by their point of view does not mean that they themselves are wrong. It is that which they have seen. Again, one or two of them might remain silent. That means without verbally discussing their point of view. That does not mean that person is not reflecting. So such pieces of advice which are thrown out, which do not precisely look at the intuitive meaning of these things, is not helpful for that other person who is unable to verbalize his or his view. Suppose that person is mute, or that person is unable to speak. How will he then react? But to remain, in quotes, as seen by us as silent. In all scenarios, it is that which is of intuition which is beneficial. And in the selection of examples, it must be stressed that those which will be of benefit to the individual should come first. For there are many distorted instances, distorted scenarios, which, looked at from different sides, people wish to say, here you are, I am correct. That you are right in your view does not mean it is beneficial to you spiritually. For many who, in quotes, are on the right, are only considering one aspect, and that is the aspect of wanting to only others to consider their views without making the necessary effort to consider the other view. And in doing that, having a well-rounded, a more comprehensive picture. So in these cases, where two people are engaged, in quotes, in some argument, that one listens to the other and does not share or has not come to an understanding of what lies in the other's argument, and therefore remains quiet or silent, doesn't mean he or she is stupid or wise, but it's only in the process of trying to decipher what that person means. It is a dynamic scenario which should not be compressed to I am right, you are wrong.
Thank you for that picture, Gregory, and answer there. Just continuing from what you've said there, sometimes we you could call it triggered or react to the situation, and get this similar to this argument issue that we're talking about. Is it our ego, Gregory, that is trying to react? Because, and then somehow it's like it's trying to show. I was going to use I'll use the word show off, or wanting attention. To, like proving that I'm right. Like you said, I'm right. We don't even know, let's say in this situation, who is right, who is wrong. Two people are there talking, with different point of view, and one is, you could say, getting triggered or reacting. Is it in this situation, when that is happening, is it something like within us, the ego, that can't help itself, it has to prove it's right or defend itself? Is that what it is that is acting or triggering that in this sort of scenario, that it's like an automatic reaction to this situation? Is it our ego that is in quotes to blame for this type of reaction?
There are many scenarios in which the personality has a sensing, has an intuitive sensing of what lies behind it, but it is unable to express itself. In that scenario, the personality, in their inability to express themselves, suffers from a pressure due to that inability. That has a general name of a complex, and that of inferiority complex. One will repeat that we have in the scenario in which a personality senses the structure or the meaning of what lies behind it. However, it is unable to express itself because it has not matured to that stage where it has the full command of a language or the discipline to express itself in such a way to make it comprehensible to others. That inability to express itself forms like a pressure, and that pressure sometimes is what many now say is a complex. A complex because it has a sensing, but it has not got the substances or the expressions to express itself, or it hasn't matured enough. And an inferiority complex. Inferiority because it lacks all that it needs to put the structure together. Inferiority complex exhibits itself in different forms. When you yourself know that there are many scenarios like that which you, through life, have experienced, then you will know that another person is likely to go through such. In that particular pattern, then there comes the understanding of the challenges of the other person. Then that understanding leads to further improvement, knowing fully well that there are many areas where you yourself have inferiority complex, just like the other person. And in understanding lies that which the human personality needs in order to make progress.
Thank you. Thanks for that answer again, Gregory. As you said, these things are dynamic, and when you look, what is going on behind a particular scenario. So, what explains this in one scenario, it can be different from what is happening in another scenario. So, we just got to be alert and awake to what is the issue, what's going on in any circumstance. I want to give you another example now, Gregory. We've heard of this phrase, silent treatment. You hear that especially between couples, where it's almost like they're not, obviously they're not getting on, and one is acting like in a vengeful way, which is where they use this silent treatment, where so one person doesn't know what the other person is thinking or what's going on, and of course it means nobody can lead to any resolution because one person has decided to withdraw in communication through anger. So obviously, Gregory, this would not be you could say a good example of silent. The power of silence is this thing in this case called silent treatment. Could you just explain when somebody is doing that, what is this point in what's going on in this situation here? Because that's obviously not a good example of a silence. The power of silence.
You yourself said it's not a good example. So a bad example, why does one wishes to understand bad examples? Because you then find most of the time it is not deep enough. It's based on assumptions which sometimes are baseless. Someone is silent. That means it's not communicative verbally. Does it mean that person does not communicate emotionally? Is he not presumptuous to assume that because one has not communicated verbally, and therefore one has a bad volition or a wrong volition? After all, what is language? Language is structured communication. So, if one of the aspects of structured communication is silent, does it mean there are no other structures? What about the body language? What about the facial expression? Again, unless one has a comprehensive picture, the tendency is always there in one's incapability of overseeing the whole to assume that the other person means that which is not good. That in itself is in error. Therefore, it is not right always to assume that, oh, these expressions, silent treatment, these and all that. You as a personality have challenges. So is the other. You as a personality at times bubble up. So is the other person. If one now receives what was not expected, because in the so-called relationships, there are expectations. Which expectations vary? If an expectation turns out not to be pleasant, there are complaints. If it is pleasant, there is happiness. You said something along the line, things are dynamic. Let the human personality become dynamic in the way they see things. And most of these unnecessary challenges will vanish.
Thank you so much for that answer, Gregory. We've now come to the end of our show tonight, listeners. I hope you enjoyed the discussion on the topic of the power of silence. Gregory, I'll just ask you, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing everyone a beautiful and wonderful week ahead.
Thank you. Dear listeners, both Gregory and I always encourage you to pick up the Grail Message for yourself, examine it for yourself, and in that end, I would advise to, if you want to get more information on the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Thank you also for joining us tonight, listeners. We'll be back again as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic. I wish you all a great week. God bless. Take care.